take a look at the worksheet for today. So the first 4 problems on this worksheet are really simple. How do you find the series when given a sequence? Just add them all together. Okay? And these are geometric sequences. So now instead of having a common difference, we have a common ratio. So notice in the first one, 12 times 6, or sorry, 2 times 6 is 12. 12 times 6 is 72. 72 times 432. Or, that was wrong. 72 times 6 is 432. And you just keep multiplying by 6. All right? So I'll leave that to you for homework. That's pretty easy. Let's do number 5 by hand, and then I'll give you the formula. All right? So this says we're going to take the summation of 4 to the k minus 1 from k equals 1 to 7. So the first time I plug in 1, I get 4 raised to the 1 minus 1 is actually 4 to the 0. So 4 to the 0, which equals 1. So I get 1 plus, when I plug in 2, I get 4 to the 2 minus 1, which is actually 4 to the 1. Well, that's what this says. It says plug in every number from 1 all the way up to 7. So plug in 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, all the way up to 7. So I plugged in 1, and I got a 0, which gave me 4 to the 0, which is 1. So I plug in 2. 2 minus 1 is 1, and 4 to the first is 4, plus, what's the next one going to look like? 4. Plug in 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. So I just write it as 4 squared, because I don't really know my 4 times tables beyond 3. Plus 4 to the third, plus, when am I going to stop? When I plug in 7. And what exponent do I get when I plug in 7? 6. So 4 to the 5th plus 4 to the 6th. So you'd need to add all those together to find the answer. And I'm going to cheat because I already did this once today. So here I have 1 plus 4 plus 4 squared, 4 to the third, all the way up to 6. And I get 5,461. Now, let's never do that again. Okay? Here is the formula for the sum of a finite geometric sequence, or a geometric series. The formula is S sub n equals a sub 1, the first term, times 1 minus the common ratio to the n. The common ratio is that number that you multiply by over and over in the sequence, and then we divide that by 1 minus r. And that will calculate the sum for me. So I need to know the first term, and I need to know the common ratio and how many terms there are. So in number 5, I already know the answer, but let's use the formula to find it. So S of n equals, what's the first term? 1. I plug in 1, and I get 1 minus 1 is 0. 4 to the 0 is 1. So it's 1 times 1 minus, what's my common ratio? 4. I'm multiplying by 4 over and over. 4. And how many numbers are in the list? From 1 to 7. So there are 7 numbers in the list, and I'm going to divide that by 1 minus 4. Now, make sure you use parentheses on this. If you don't, you're going to screw it up, unless you do it piece by piece, but that's no fun. So 1 parentheses, 1 minus 4 raised to the 7th, parenthesis, divided by, parenthesis 1 minus 4, and I should get the same answer. in theory, if I did it right. And there it is, 5461. Now, really, how did you do that? Oh, you didn't divide it by parentheses 1 minus 4. You divided it by 1 and then subtracted 4 from it. And then divided it by negative 3. So actually, this number should have been the right one. And the fact that you randomly divided by that and it was close, that was a fluke. So you need to put parentheses around the 1 minus 4. Yes? You didn't put parentheses around your 1 minus 4. So if you forget parentheses here, you're going to divide by 1, which doesn't do anything, and then you subtract 4 from your answer. But you actually want to divide by negative 3. So make sure that you put parentheses on both the top and the bottom. Or you can do it piece by piece. You could calculate the top and then calculate the bottom, but then you'd have to type them in, and nobody likes to do that. Okay. So I want you to try number 6. Go ahead and give number 6 a try. So I'll pause the video. So your equation should look something like this. I plug in 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. Negative 6 to the 0 is going to be 1. So 1 times 1 plus 6 to the 8th over 1 plus 6. So I don't really need that first 1. It doesn't do anything. So 1 plus 6 to the 8th divided by 1 plus 6. Oops. I don't think it should be negative, that's for sure. How can that happen? What's that? You could. You could do divide by 7. Well, let's make sure that we're doing this right. So let's look at term 1. It's going to be 1 plus. So here we're going to get negative 6 to the first plus negative 6 squared plus negative 6 to the third. Was yours a whole number, Josh? Oh, that's the problem. Okay. I know what I did wrong. So 1 minus r to the n. Well, if r is negative and I raise it to the 8th power, then it's going to be positive, which becomes negative. Well, there's a difference between 1 minus r and 1 minus r to the n. This happens first. No, negative 6 to the 8th is positive. Because, well, here's what you're looking at. Negative 6 to the 8th is wrong. Because it's parenthesis negative 6 to the 8th. Yes. And that's why I got the wrong number and Josh got the right number. So we need to type it in like this. So 1 times 1 minus negative 6 to the 8th over, do I need to split it up on bottom? No, because it's just going to be 1 minus 6. So we don't need to split that up, so we're going to divide by 5. Thank you, plus 6. Okay, so 1 minus parenthesis negative 6 to the 8th parenthesis. That's what it should look like. Because you're going to subtract negative 6 to the 8th, but negative 6 to the 8th is a positive number. So when you subtract, it becomes negative. And now, because Chaseley's lazy like me, I'm just going to divide by negative 5. Negative 5. How about 7? There we go. And now I get the correct sum. Well, we're adding negative numbers, right? We're adding negative 6, negative 6 squared. Well, but that's not always going to work. Yeah, erase that. Yeah. Now, this sequence is bouncing back and forth between negative and positive, right? So the sums are going to bounce between negatives and positives. So this one happens to be negative. The next one might happen to be positive. If we tried it, so if I plug in a 9 here, if I plug in a 9, should I get a positive or a negative number? I will probably get a positive number, so it's bouncing back and forth. And those negative and positive numbers are so big that the sum is also bouncing back and forth. And sometimes that happens. Okay? All right. And sometimes you'll get numbers that bounce back and forth, but they get closer and closer to 0. And sometimes that happens. So they're bouncing back and forth, but they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller, so when that happens, they go towards 0. Or in fact, they can even bounce back and forth. Let's say this is y equals 2. They can also bounce back and forth and get closer and closer to 2. And we'll look at those because you're honor students. You're actually going to do some of those in a couple days when we get there. Okay. Let's have you try number 7. If you look at number 7, we're going to get 1 again. 1 times 1 minus r is 2 to the 9th over 1 minus 9 is negative 8. So 1 minus, what is it, 2 to the 9th. I'm going to divide that by negative 8. Wait, divide it by what? Isn't 9 the... Oh, 1 minus... Oh. Boy, that was dumb of me. So negative 511 divided by negative 1. So the sum is 511. But I was dividing by 1 minus n. It's actually 1 minus r. Okay, look at number 9. Now, there's kind of a trick here that you may have realized. So if you look at number 9, what is this 2 going to do? That's just going to be my first term, right? Because this is going to turn into a 1, so the number in front is actually a sub 1. So sometimes we just say a times 1 minus r to the n over 1 minus r, and a is the number in front, because you're always going to get a 0 exponent every time. So all you have to do is put whatever number is there, goes right here. It would be negative 2. So the rate is negative 2. So this would be 2 times 1 minus negative 2. The rate, yeah, this is always the rate. Yes, exactly. And then we're going to divide that by 1 plus 2. Okay, your homework tonight is to finish the first page I want you to try to go all the way to 14. So try the first two on the next page.